Aloha and welcome to this week's video. So this week I'm going to be starting a new piece. This is going to be similar to the last piece that I made. It's a Hawaiian leo mano, except this one is going to be a special piece. So a while ago I reached out to the Skallagrim YouTube channel. I'm a big fan of his. And I asked him if he was interested in a Hawaiian piece, just because he likes to do testing and review of various types of weapons. Now, he primarily does medieval and European style weapons, not Hawaiian and Polynesian, but I thought it'd be fun anyway. He finally reached back out to me and said that he would be absolutely interested in it, and so I'm finally going to be making him a piece, and this is what I'm working on now. So I had a lot of back and forth as to what style leo mano I wanted to make. I mentioned a couple different style of pieces, and the leo mano was the style that he was interested in, which is kind of like a paddle with shark teeth that go around the outer edge of the paddle. And so while I was thinking about it, I decided to go for a small to medium sized piece, not too large on the paddle side, just so that it has a little bit better balance, and it would be something a little bit more traditional, a little bit more common. So in ancient Hawaii, a lot of your more rather pieces that you might find in actual combat would be probably a little bit smaller, not as large, although they did have large pieces, but your average warrior, outside of your koa warriors, which were more of an advanced trained warrior type. So the first step here was just templating it out, the overall design shape and pattern, and then the next step is going to be shaping it down. This is a thicker piece of koa, and my original design for the piece is I wanted to put a center ridge that goes all the way down the blade, which is a common design practice that I like to implement in most of my pieces. There was a little bit of an issue though with this piece. Even though it's a thicker piece of koa, it had kind of a dip in one section, and I wasn't paying attention to where my center was. I needed to offset my center to account for that dip, and then I'd get a nice clean ridge line, a center ridge down both sides. But I just wasn't paying attention as I was shaping down, and I shaped down to center rather than an offset center. And when I say center, I'm talking about center on the thickness of it, not the front of it, so the side of it. But because of that, that divot that went down on the piece made it so that it would become very difficult to get a center line. And so the entire time I was shaping, I was noticing that, and I realized I'd made that mistake, and so I was kind of debating as to what I wanted to do. So I kind of took a break from the paddle and went to working on a little bit of the handle side, the section here. This is just going to come down to a point, a small pahoa or dagger. This is a common design practice for a lot of older leo mano. I like to implement triangles and diamonds in the shapes just because those patterns and shapes show up a lot in Hawaii, as well as other Polynesian islands, but you see them a lot there. So all I'm doing here is I'm cleaning up the edge work on this, and then I can go back and remove some more of that material with the angle grinder. That just speeds it up. Otherwise, I'd have to remove the entire amount of that koa with chisels, and that would just take a long time. And so I clean up the edges, and then I'm just very careful not to nick that edge with the angle grinder, and I can remove a lot more material a lot faster. And then I can eventually, once I get back to it, I can switch back to using the chisel set and sanding and various other tools to clean up that back end section. So now that I have that kind of cleaned up, I can get to working on the piece some more. I decided usually at this point I'd keep utilizing the angle grinder because I still have a lot of material to remove, but because of the divot and the odd shape of the natural wood, I needed to be a little bit more careful as I was removing, and so I just switched right ahead to 120 grit sandpaper. It's a lower grit sandpaper, so it'll help remove material a little bit faster, but this way I can be a lot more careful with the material that I'm removing. It's going to take longer to remove that material, but I have a lot more control as to how it's going to look and where those pieces, where the wood is going to turn out. And so that'll work in my favor. I was still a little bit unsure as to what I wanted to do at this point. I kind of had an idea that I was going to flatten that center ridge, so I'd have just a center ridge at the top quarter or third of it, and then it would be flat going down past that, which is what you see here, is I'm just marking that off so I can keep track of that section where I'm going to be flattening it. But I still wasn't entirely sure what I wanted to do there. I was kind of debating how I wanted that to look. What I ended up deciding to do is put in a pattern, niho mano pattern, which is a row of triangles, and then I'm going to be using white and gold mother of pearl inlay for that pattern, and I think that's actually going to turn out really nice. And so I was really excited once I kind of settled on a design pattern, because I think it'll add just enough contrast that it'll be a very beautiful piece, but it'll still be very functional. As I was sanding down, I noticed a little bit of sections that had a tiny bit of wood rot, and so I'm going to go, probably when there was bugs previously got into the piece, so I'm just filling that with sawdust and then using some CA glue to fill that in, and then an accelerant to kind of harden the outer side. I am going to let that sit though, because I want to make sure that the CA glue that soaked into the coal wood hardens, cures all the way through, and so I'm going to let that sit, and then I'll come back to it. I ended up letting it sit overnight just because I had some other things I had to take care of, but doing that allows me to strengthen up those sections and make it a little bit more robust. And then from here, just continuing to sand down the piece. I'm going to sand it down probably to 220 before I start working on the niho mano pattern, the triangle pattern. Niho stands for teeth, mano is shark, so it's like a shark tooth pattern. What the pattern itself stands for is a variety of things. One of the meanings to it is lineage, like your family lineage. Another meaning for it is courage and strength, and so it has quite a few different meanings depending on the pattern design and layout of the niho, of the teeth triangle shape. But overall, I think I'm going to really enjoy the way that looks. Before I get to that though, I'm going to start, or rather I'm going to finish shaping up the end section here of the leo mano, the dagger section of the leo mano. And I'm just using a combination of my chisel. It's a 3/4 inch chisel and then a metal file, and then going back and forth with sandpaper that I wrap around the file. And that just helps get it mostly shaped down. And then once I have it shaped down 90%, maybe 95%, at that point I can come back with the disc sander, as well as some additional hand sanding, and true up that dagger section and make it look nice and clean, sharp, and have good angles on all sides. And again, this is making a diamond pattern. The diamond pattern is a common pattern you see, a triangle pattern you see in a lot of Hawaiian and Polynesian designs and carvings and patterns, and so I like to implement it anywhere I can. There's quite a bit of work. Usually I skip over a lot of the kind of boring stuff, but I thought this time I'd kind of show a little bit more of that. It's easy to forget how long it takes to do stuff on YouTube and Instagram and places like that. Everything is sped up and they skip a lot of time, and so it makes it feel like everything is fast. But if you ever want to start making any of these pieces, or you're doing your own woodworking or your own weapons or pieces, just keep in mind that everything takes a little bit of time, and so don't get discouraged. Just keep working at it. It usually starts ugly and and then gets as you get closer and closer to the finish, it looks better and better. So the next step here is just cutting in the hole where the wrist strap is going to go. You saw that I drilled it out from both sides. I did that just because it makes it easier for me to keep track of those holes, and then it meets in the middle. That way, if my bit walked on me at all, that gets hidden. You don't really see that as much. It's a nice clean drill on both sides. So here I'm drawing a center line, and the center line is going to help me keep track of where the triangle inlays are going to go. These little triangles are triangles I made a long time ago, but I keep them for patterns. So it's kind of like a template. Now I'm drawing this on there, but I'm only drawing that line there. I'm just trying to get my spacing. I want to see how many of these roughly I'm going to use for each side of the leo mano. And I kind of decided to use 6 pieces, so it's going to have 6 triangles down each side, which is going to take forever to cut in. But before I even get to that, I need to shape those triangle pieces. And so these are white and gold mother of pearl sheets, just chunks of mother of pearl. And so I'm tracing my template onto each one of those, and then I can take those to my disc here, and I can start shaping them down. And then I have an air filter that's pulling it off to the side, so it's kind of hard to see from here, but you'll notice that the dust always gets pulled to the right side. Your right, my left, and that's just as a result of my air filter that I have pulling that over. And so it keeps it nice and clean, or rather helps prevent getting too much of this dust in the air, which is kind of nice. And then my door's open as well. But it's always good to have good air filtration, just to be safe. This also took quite a while. I'm going to end up skipping most of that, but you can see the process. So I get it close to that line, the template, and then I come over to the metal file and clean up or true up those lines so that they'll have nice, clean, straight lines. This does gum up the metal file, so I got to brush it out between each one. But it took quite a while to get all those triangles shaped into place. Probably, I don't know, I think it was like 2 hours, hour and a half to 2 hours. And then from here, I needed to start cutting out the inlays. The inlays took quite a while. I expected them to take a while just because they do. It might be a little bit faster if I had a router or some type of CNC or something like that, but you know, I don't. So I'm just going to be working on this. How I would cut it out is I'd put the triangle where I wanted it to be, hold it firmly in place, trace around it with a marking knife, and then using a 1/4 inch and 3/4 inch chisel, just kind of go back and forth. Actually, I think it's a 3/8 inch chisel, not a 1/4 inch. I can't remember now off the top of my head. I think it's 3/4. And then I can just go through and start making each one of these. Now, each one is made specific to that piece, because even though I used a template to shape the pieces, they're all slightly different. So if you used one piece and cut out all of the inlays, your inlays aren't going to be a very good fit, because they're all made for that first piece. And so each inlay is made for each individual piece. And so I'm keeping track of which ones they are. So you can see the row of 4 now. It was growing on the bottom right hand side of the screen, and those are ones that have already been cut in and ready to be glued into place. Once I finish cutting all of these out, I'm going to go ahead and use some thicker CA glue and glue these into place, and that should be a nice solid fit. I've only sanded the entire piece down to 220, so I still need to sand everything down to 320, but I'm going to put all of the inlays into place before I do that, because it is an inlay, it's flush, and so that will sand down. I might have to use the metal file because the pearl is a lot harder than the koa wood, but it'll sand down with it and leave a nice, clean, smooth finish across the entire piece. So here's the first finished Nihon Mano pattern, and now I have to do it again. But I'm actually out of time this week, so this will be the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm hoping to have it finished by next week and shipped out, so I'm super excited for this piece. He may or may not present it in one of his videos. I don't know. I didn't ask. But I'm excited to send it out to him and get his opinion of it. I do enjoy watching his videos quite a bit. Well, mahalo nui for everyone that tunes in to my videos. I appreciate it. If you liked it, go ahead, leave a like and a comment. And definitely stay tuned for next week. And I will see you next time. Mahalo. Aloha. Bye.